Good morning. You just saw Mrs. Estabrook pass by the video there. You can just come say hi. Come say hi, Miss Estabrook.
Maybe tomorrow.
She says maybe tomorrow. I hope everybody is well. It's a beautiful sunny day. The snow seems to be melting relatively quickly. Some great comments I got on the last video. For example, I was told to stop doing a lot of this, clapping and thumping my hands on the table. I didn't realize until the playback that it was quite as loud as it ended up being. So my apologies. I will do a better job with that and try to avoid that. You know me, though. I do move around a lot. I do have a tendency to make a little bit of noise, as you've all pointed out more than once. Hopefully you enjoyed those garum videos, and we would have probably not made garum because, as I said in my video, I don't really eat fish, and I certainly wouldn't eat fermented fish juice. But there are quite a few things that we would normally be doing. We would be making a couple of different food items here in the coming weeks. We're not going to be able to do that, and because some of us are restricted in how much we can actually go out, I'm not going to expect any of you to do that at home. So, something else that did come up that is an important point. People have asked me about the packets that I keep talking about. Let me just say there are no specific social studies packets. What it is the packets that were delivered to you on Tuesday or yesterday, depending on what your opportunity was, or had it mailed to you. Those packets are the only packets that are currently out there, okay? And those are going to have math and reading materials. There's no specific social studies stuff in there because those were generic packets that were given to all sixth graders, not just sixth graders who get social studies from me. So the next set of packets might have something a little bit more specific, and we're definitely investigating some other ways to communicate information to you. I, for example, am making a Google page, Google Classroom, that hopefully you're going to have an opportunity to get into. I'm going to put a lot of material up on that. For now, though, these daily videos are probably going to be the best way to get a hold of me or to get information from me. I'm going to put a link to my email address down below. I know some of you don't have an email address. A lot of you have opened up Google Docs and shared them to me with little messages. I encourage you to go back and reread those because I do respond to every single one of those. But it may not give you a notification that I've added anything. So you've got to go back in and look at your own Google Doc. Good way to do it, though. I was pretty impressed. You did nicely with that. You can always use email because if you can access Google Docs, then you can definitely access email as well. Maybe ask a parent to help you get email working. I know email is a bit of an old school way to do it, but you can definitely still try. The comments are off on these videos because they are for children, and I don't want to have to manage comments down there. As much as I love you children, I also know that I don't want to get involved in having to manage language or the general tomfoolery that every one of you is capable of taking part in. So, again, emails are best. Regarding the packets, there are no social studies packets. So when I'm talking about packets, I'm talking about those generic packets that were given to you. And I will have a Google Classroom up and running before too long, and hopefully you can access that. If you can access YouTube, you should be able to access Google Classroom. I know the other teachers are doing the same, so I would expect that there's going to be something going out with some links, and I'll definitely put the links in these videos as well. So, on to today's lesson. With the theme of food that we've been talking about this week, what I want to get to is something that's pretty cool, and it's about cheese. My own children yesterday did a little bit of a lesson. When they watched those videos, they marked off what would they have been able to eat in ancient Rome. Luckily, they seemed to be willing to eat enough stuff to have survived in ancient Rome, but there was definitely a lot of things that they just weren't interested in. Cheese, though, seems to be a relatively popular thing with most people, provided you don't have a dairy allergy. And a big question that came up was, well, how do you make cheese? Now, I'm going to include a link to a really cool video by a gentleman called Townsend and Son. Oh, that's not his name. It's the name of the YouTube channel. I'm assuming his last name is Townsend. He mostly does 17th and 18th century historical reenactment. So that's going to be the 1600s and 1700s, but he does do a little bit of stuff for the 1800s as well. But the cool thing is he actually goes to a living history museum where he looks at how do you make cheese. And there was some pretty neat stuff I didn't realize about cheese. And some stuff that I found rather gross, which made me question whether I am going to be quite as big of a cheese fan as I used to be. So I encourage you, watch this video. Even though it's from those centuries, we could probably assume that that's going to be how they would have made it back in Roman times, because cheese sort of functions off a very specific process, which involves trying to get it to curdle, and then trying to get enzymes and good bacterial cultures to spread, and it basically converts that milk into cheese. But the other thing that I think is pretty cool, and the lady mentions it in the video, is it is in many ways used to preserve milk. We have similar things in the American frontier during the 1700s, 1800s, and we've talked about this in class. How do you preserve food when you don't have a refrigerator or a freezer? We talked about the fact that you could dry it, you could smoke it, you could salt it. All of these things involve taking the water out of it in order to prevent bacteria from growing and causing your food to rot. But another thing that people could do is you could promote the production of good bacteria and convert things like milk into cheese. The other thing we know the frontiersmen did is when they would grow corn and such, they started turning it into alcohol. And we saw that that was something that the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians did as well. And, of course, the Greeks and the Romans. The Greeks and the Romans, because of the difficulty in finding clean water sometimes, did have a tendency, Alexander the Great in particular and his men, of drinking wine. Wine, if you remember, because of the alcohol content, it was much more difficult for bacteria to grow. So, in this case here, though, you're turning milk into cheese, which means you can store it for months and months and months, and get that sustenance without having to worry about keeping it refrigerated. If you look at the milk in your fridge, it doesn't last very long, whereas cheese will last a very long time. So it's a really cool idea. Anyway, I'm going to share that video. I hope that you watch it and you enjoy it. Again, I want to remind you, put in about an hour to 2 hours, on those packets a day. There's not that much in there. You should be able to finish it relatively quickly. And read. If you have access to MobyMax, do your MobyMax. If you have access to Read 180, do some Read 180. Listen, you got to keep going. You got to keep moving. It's going to be so important. You don't let your brain just shut down for these weeks ahead. And make sure you're not driving your parents too crazy. So have a great afternoon. I miss you all very, very much, and I absolutely love all the messages that you're sending, so keep them coming. I will catch you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.